Have you noticed something unsettling about retirement lately? Not just that it's expensive, but that it's quietly slipping out of reach altogether. People who worked for decades are discovering there's no clear finish line anymore. Savings that once felt solid are shrinking. Social Security isn't stretching far enough. And the promise that defined adulthood, work hard, play by the rules, and one day you get to rest, is breaking in real time. This isn't a future problem, it's happening now. And by the time most people realize how serious the retirement crisis has become, there may be no way to fix it. For most of modern history, retirement followed a simple and widely accepted promise. You worked for decades, you contributed to the system, and eventually, you stepped away, not into wealth, but into security. Retirement was never meant to be luxury, it was meant to be stability. A predictable end to working life. A phase defined by dignity rather than anxiety. That promise is now quietly collapsing. Not through a single crisis, not through one dramatic policy failure, but through slow structural erosion that most people don't recognize until it's too late. What makes today's retirement crisis uniquely dangerous is not just undersaving. It's that the entire system was designed for conditions that no longer exist. Shorter lifespans, stable careers, predictable markets, affordable housing, rising wages, guaranteed pensions. Those assumptions shaped everything, from retirement age to savings formulas to benefit structures. And almost all of them are now outdated. The result is a retirement model that still looks functional on paper, but increasingly fails in real life. Most people approaching retirement know they feel behind. Surveys confirm it. Anxiety is widespread. But what those surveys rarely capture is how far behind actually is. Retirement security once rested on three pillars: employer pensions, personal savings, and Social Security. Today, one pillar has largely collapsed. Another is dangerously thin. And the third is under growing strain. Employer pensions were the foundation. They didn't make retirees wealthy, but they made income predictable. They absorbed market risk, they accounted for longevity, and they shifted uncertainty away from individuals. Those plans didn't disappear suddenly. They were phased out quietly, replaced with individual accounts that transferred risk downward. 401ks were marketed as freedom, control, ownership. What they actually introduced was exposure. Instead of guaranteed income, workers received market-linked balances. Instead of professional risk management, they were handed investment menus. Instead of certainty, they were told to stay invested and trust long-term averages. That works well, until it doesn't. Markets do not move in straight lines. Careers are not uninterrupted. Life does not respect planning assumptions. Most workers don't contribute enough, often because they can't. Layoffs happen. Health issues intervene. Caregiving interrupts income. Recessions freeze contributions. Compounding depends on consistency. Real life rarely offers it. And unlike pensions, there is no safety net when timing fails. A market downturn near retirement isn't theoretical, it's permanent. There is no time to recover, no reset, no second cycle. This transforms retirement from a destination into a gamble. Savings were supposed to close the gap, but savings require surplus, and surplus has become rare. Over the past 2 decades, housing costs surged. Healthcare expenses climbed relentlessly. Education debt expanded. Childcare costs exploded. Wages rose. But not fast enough and not consistently enough. For millions of households, there was never much left to save. Even disciplined savers faced structural headwinds. Interest rates remained low for years, suppressing safe returns. Inflation quietly eroded purchasing power. And after the pandemic, the cost of living reset higher, permanently. What looked like progress was often just movement. Then there is Social Security, the final pillar and the most misunderstood. It was never designed to fully fund retirement. It was meant to supplement pensions and savings. Yet for a growing share of retirees, it has become the primary, sometimes only, source of income. That dependence creates fragility. Benefits rise slowly. Healthcare costs rise quickly. Housing costs do not pause. Longevity keeps extending the timeline. A retirement that once lasted 10 to 15 years now stretches 25 or even 30. Few plans account for that. The gap does not appear all at once. At first, spending tightens, travel disappears, discretionary choices shrink, but essentials remain: housing, utilities, insurance, healthcare. Healthcare is the pressure point that breaks most plans. Medicare helps, but it does not eliminate exposure. Premiums, deductibles, prescriptions, and long-term care accumulate quietly. One serious health event can erase years of savings. Long-term care is the most destabilizing variable of all. Most people assume it won't apply to them. Statistically, many will need it. Few have coverage. Even fewer can sustain out-of-pocket costs for long. This is how savings disappear. Not through indulgence, but through necessity. Downsizing often isn't a solution. Housing markets are expensive. Renting is unstable. Aging in place is costly. What once looked like flexibility becomes constraint. This is where the crisis stops being abstract. More retirees are working, not for fulfillment, but survival. Part-time jobs, gig work, retail, service roles. It's framed as choice. In reality, it's adaptation. Work in retirement was once optional. Now for many, it is essential. And the margin for error is thin. A health issue, a job loss, a market downturn. Any one of these can collapse what remains of stability. The retirement crisis is not approaching. It is already embedded. And the longer it remains misunderstood, the fewer options remain. Because what happens when millions of people cannot afford to stop working and cannot afford to get sick? That question leads directly into the next phase of this crisis. When retirement security weakens, the consequences don't remain personal. They spread. Because retirement is not just an individual milestone. It is a structural component of the economy. When it stops functioning, pressure moves everywhere at once. Labor markets feel it first. When people cannot afford to retire, they stay in the workforce longer than planned. At first, this looks positive. Experience remains. Participation rates rise. Headlines frame it as productivity. But beneath the surface, the reason is clear. Older workers are not staying because opportunity expanded. They are staying because exit became unaffordable. This changes labor dynamics quietly but decisively. Positions don't open when expected. Promotions slow. Career ladders stretch. Younger workers wait longer to advance. Wage growth compresses as competition increases. Employers hesitate to hire when turnover slows. The system bottlenecks. A generation unable to retire restricts opportunity for the generation behind it, which then becomes less prepared to retire in the future. The cycle reinforces itself. At the same time, aging workers face their own vulnerabilities. Health issues become more frequent. Physical endurance declines. Recovery takes longer. Employers respond logically. Benefits are reduced. Full-time roles are replaced. With contract work, stability weakens. For someone in their late 60s or 70s, job loss is not temporary. It is catastrophic. Reemployment becomes difficult. Income options narrow. Social Security alone rarely covers rising costs. This is how retirement insecurity turns into employment insecurity and then into financial fragility. Healthcare accelerates the pressure. Costs rise with age, and the system assumes retirees can absorb them. When savings are thin, healthcare becomes destabilizing. Medical debt among older Americans is rising. quietly. Savings are not being drained by lifestyle spending, but by survival. Once savings are gone, options disappear. Housing becomes the next fault line. Many retirees expected to own homes outright. Mortgages now extend longer. Property taxes rise. Insurance costs surge. Ownership no longer guarantees affordability. Renting is often worse. Fixed incomes cannot keep pace with rising rents. Downsizing does not always reduce costs. Moving closer to family often means higher prices. Housing insecurity among older adults is growing, invisibly. Public systems absorb the strain next. Social security dependency rises as private savings fall. Healthcare systems face rising demand with limited capacity. Families take on caregiving responsibilities. Often at the cost of their own financial stability, caregiving pulls workers out of the labor force. Income declines. Savings stall. The crisis compounds across generations. Consumption slows. People spend less not because income collapsed overnight, but because confidence did. Fear of outliving savings changes behavior. Purchases are delayed. Risk is avoided. An economy built on confidence struggles when its largest cohort is uncertain about survival. This is why retirement insecurity matters far beyond individuals. It reshapes economic behavior. Retirement no longer represents rest. It represents risk management. And that psychological shift matters. When a retirement system fails, the damage does not arrive suddenly. It stretches forward. Behavior changes first. People save defensively, spend cautiously, avoid long-term commitments. Confidence drains quietly. And confidence is the invisible fuel of growth. Financial markets reflect the strain unevenly. Retirees remain exposed to volatility because safer alternatives offer little return. They need stability, but are pushed toward risk. Sequence risk becomes decisive. Losses late in life are permanent. Withdrawals lock them in. Decades of discipline can unravel in a short window. As this happens, trust erodes. Younger generations watch closely. They see parents who did everything right and still struggle. They absorb a dangerous lesson, not motivation, skepticism. Why sacrifice now if outcomes are uncertain? Why trust systems that failed their predecessors? Participation declines. Planning feels abstract. Short-term survival takes priority. Public policy struggles to respond. There are no painless solutions. Every adjustment carries trade-offs. Meanwhile, demographics continue to shift. Longer lives are a success story, but only if systems adapt. These systems did not. Healthcare demand rises. Care workers become scarce. Families absorb the burden. Housing mobility slows. Wealth becomes locked in place. Labor mobility weakens. Innovation slows. Risk tolerance declines. Entrepreneurship weakens. Economies become defensive. This is how momentum fades, quietly. The narrative often blames individuals. They didn't save enough. They planned poorly. But when millions experience the same outcome, the problem is systemic. The retirement system assumed stability that no longer exists. What people are doing now is not thriving. It is endurance. Endurance has limits. As insecurity grows, inequality widens. Those with assets manage. Those without fall behind permanently. The social contract weakens. Retirement is not just financial. It represents dignity after work, a promise fulfilled. When that promise breaks, the consequences reach beyond money. They reshape how people view effort, aging, and the future itself. The tragedy is not that retirement is harder. It is that it is uncertain. Uncertainty forces defensive living. It narrows ambition. It compresses time horizons. And once uncertainty becomes embedded, restoring trust takes far more than small fixes. The retirement crisis was built slowly, quietly, structurally, And unless it is addressed with the same seriousness, its shadow will continue to stretch across generations. That shadow is already here. The only unanswered question is how long a society can function when its promise of rest after work no longer feels real.